Alright everyone, so we have another video here from Craft Store focusing on the character of Yusuke Urameshi from Yu Yu Hakusho, which, before we get into the video guys, I have to say that if you have not watched Yu Yu Hakusho, I highly recommend it. It is absolutely fantastic. In my opinion, one of the best anime series ever made. If you have not watched it, trust me, you would be doing yourself a favor. Now, Yusuke Urameshi, in my opinion, is honestly one of the best written shonen protagonists ever, and I don't really see him being discussed all that much. I mean, you hear people talk about Goku, you hear people talk about Naruto, Luffy, Ichigo from Bleach, Deku from My Hero, and multiple other shonen series where, you know, the protagonist is discussed, but for some reason I never hear people talk about Yusuke Urameshi. And I don't understand why, because for me, Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter are two of the best written shonen series out there, and if for some reason you don't see a lot of people talking about their protagonists, I don't understand why. And Yusuke, in my opinion, is discussed even less than Gon. Gon, at least, you hear people every now and then talk about him, but Yusuke, almost no one talks about him, and I don't understand why, because, like I said, in my opinion, he's one of the best written shonen protagonists. But let's go ahead and watch this video, guys, and as always, if you like what you guys see here, make sure to leave a like, share, subscribe if you're new, hit the bell for notifications, let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and make sure to check the description for links to this video as well as Craft Store's channel. Make sure you head on over there, subscribe to him, guys, go watch his videos. He makes fantastic videos. So let's go ahead and watch this video.
This video is not alone. You can find its comrade on Nunmaji's channel right now. Check out some of his other stuff too.
I guess we could react to that as well.
Boy with no expectations of himself, even when putting himself in the shoes of those around him, Yusuke took the hedonistic pleasure he could in his day-to-day. Skipping school, harassing Keiko, playing games, gambling, and above all, fighting. Combat was conflict at its most simple core, and Yusuke was damn good at it. No one close to his age even being able to touch him. Even as he entered the world of spirits, he took to it like a mole in the earth, learning and mastering spirit arts, pulled in by this new power and even new conflict. But there was a steady crevice growing as his world broadened, beginning to shift. Fighting wasn't just fighting anymore. Even if the most serious of delinquents could actually pose a threat to him, his own livelihood hadn't been at real risk. His view of his existence not so different from trash. Yusuke's self-value wasn't enough that he particularly minded being hurt, but being hurt did affect those around him, something Yusuke never wanted, learning from his death just how much. But even being thrust into these life and death stakes didn't really impact Yusuke, a young man who had already died. His opponents were beyond his experiences, but circumstances allowed for his strength, and he surmounted those in his way, until he met that which could not be surmounted.
Toguro. One of, in my opinion, one of the best written antagonists in all of shonen. Toguro is just, again, it's insane how well he was written, and again, it's a testament to just how good of a writer Togashi is, and it's one of the reasons why there are people out there who are willing to wait for his work to come back, because we know that it's going to be worth it, because we know based on his past work how good of a writer he is. That's why we are willing to wait.
Toguro flexed with a power beyond anything Yusuke had experienced in his life, and yet still claimed it was but a fraction. Even when barely trying, he was no one to be trifled with. Much like Yusuke, he wanted an enjoyable fight, but with so few able to match him, he forced Yusuke into that position, gripping the boy with a fear he'd never felt before. The distinction was made all too clear in the Dark Tournament. Yusuke likes fighting. Battles against the likes of Chu and Jin excited him. They brought tricks and techniques to the table that kept Yusuke engaged, went at it with all their hearts to see who would be left standing, and they could do that without hurting anyone unnecessarily.
Alright guys, but if you're new to this channel, I gotta keep the volume low because I don't want to get in trouble with copyright, because audio is like one of the worst things. You almost cannot defend yourself when it comes to audio and, you know, copyright. So that's why I gotta be careful.
Without risking innocence or even life. But Dr. Ichigaki, or of course Toguro, threatened whoever they chose. And Yusuke could not lose himself in those battles. How could he stand to enjoy himself while others risked suffering? And thus was born a contradiction, one that surfaced as he reached his peak. With more power, he could fight harder and defend those he cared about, but he had a limit. Spirit energy is explained early on to hinge on the strength of emotions. Sayaka easily tossed Yusuke about in her desire for a friend, but once she had one, her feelings muted, and her powers became as non-threatening as she really was. And for Yusuke, who so deeply never wanted anyone hurt at his expense, felt his deepest, most powerful emotion when a dear friend of his met his end at Togoro's hand. That deepened his self-hatred, Yusuke lamenting that he couldn't muster the strength before it came to this. But with that strength, he finally gave Toguro the fight of his life, and the one that would end it. Toguro had once lost everything.
Sorry, but before we get to that, I kind of just want to talk about this for a second. This is because I talked about just how well, how good of a writer Togashi is, and this is one of the things that I absolutely love because, you know, one thing that you sometimes see in anime is, you know, the main character sees one of their friends, you know, get hurt, and then they get mad, and then they just get this you know, random power up out of nowhere, and they automatically gain the power that they need in order to be able to take down the enemy, when just a minute ago it was shown that they, with all of their power, can, like, they couldn't do anything against the villain. And then someone close to them either gets hurt or dies, they get mad, and then they get this just surge of power that allows them to take down the whoever the antagonist is at the time. And I'm not gonna lie, like, that does get a little bit, you know, repetitive after a while, and it does get a little bit annoying. But one thing that I love about how Togashi did it here is that he makes it clear that this power that Yusuke has isn't a power that just came out of nowhere. It's not like Yusuke hit his limit and then he got mad and his power just immediately rose to new heights and allowed him the ability to fight against this opponent that's been absolutely dominating him all this time. No, he makes it clear that Yusuke has this power, he just needs to know how to access it. And so Toguro hurting Kuwabara just gave Yusuke that emotional push to be able to access that power. So it wasn't just, you know, Yusuke hit his limit, his friend got hurt, and then he got mad, and that anger raised his power to, you know, a level that allows him to be able to beat Toguro. No, Togashi kind of subverts that by saying, no, Yusuke has that power, he just needs to access it. And the thing that I love about this is that it's, like I said, it's kind of a subversion of that trope in that you usually see in shonen fantasy series, where there's a power system, you know, like Dragon Ball, Naruto, Bleach. Any shonen series that has a power system, you usually always see that. That's become kind of a trope. And Togashi kind of, the thing that I love about what he does in, whether it's Yu Yu Hakusho or Hunter x Hunter, whether it's Yusuke in Yu Yu Hakusho or Gon in Hunter x Hunter, he kind of takes that trope of the, you know, anger power up and kind of subverts it, like he changes it. And for example, you know, look at what happened with Gon when he got his power up. Usually in shonen, whenever main characters get their power ups, it's always treated as if it's this good thing, like, oh my god, this is so amazing. But with Gon, the way it's, you know, the way it's written, the way it's staged, and especially in the anime with the music and the direction, the storyboards, the way it's handled, it conveys to us, the audience, that this is not a good thing. This isn't something to be excited about. Like, Gon's not, he's not doing something good here. Yeah, it's going to benefit him in the short run, but in the long term, or in the long run, excuse me, it's going to heavily affect him. That's why you've got the music, the dark lighting, again, the dialogue, which was delivered beautifully by Gon's voice actress, just all of it absolutely phenomenal, and it all conveys perfectly to us, the audience, that what's about to happen here is not good. And again, that's just something that Togashi seems like he likes to do, which is to take shonen tropes and kind of subvert them, put his own twist on them. And he did that here with Yusuke Urameshi, and I always love that he does that he doesn't just kind of play exactly into these shonen tropes that you're usually used to seeing from shonen series. The only other example that I can think of that's similar to this is in Dragon Ball, in during Gohan's fight against Cell, where it's revealed that Gohan, because all throughout the series Gohan keeps hinting or Toriyama hints that Gohan has this incredible reserve of power. He just doesn't know how to properly access it at will. He can only access it whenever his emotions are heightened. And then you get to the fight against Cell, that's when you have that payoff. And when he finally does learn to control just that insane amount of power, you finally get to see how powerful Gohan actually is when he just destroys Cell like it's nothing. That's the only other example that I can think of. I'm sure there are probably others, but I can't really think of them at the moment. If you know them, if you know any other examples, let me know about them in the comment section down below. Sorry about that. Sorry for going on that tangent, but I just really want to talk about that. Let's see, where were we?
The fight of his life, and the one that would end it. Toguro had once lost everything, and dared not to make new bonds, aiming to achieve the ultimate strength alone. Toguro exemplified the extreme of Yusuke's ideals and motives, not having anyone near him to hurt, yet doing everything he needed to get stronger and enjoy a fight, but not in excess. His last actions to preserve Genkai's body for resurrection, and to keep Kuwabara alive revealed sympathy. Toguro choosing not to let Yusuke suffer like he did. He understood the young boy well. And with his passing, one who could not stand to have bonds could never be as strong as a young boy fighting for his friends. And yet, for Yusuke to achieve that strength, someone had to be hurt for his sake. Cutting off everyone was not the way, and Yusuke could not simply stop fighting, something he burned to do. Yet to keep fighting and protecting his friends meant they might be hurt, might have to be hurt. Trapped in this loop, Yusuke laments that he has reached his peak, as he couldn't go further on a path to strength without those close to him being hurt. As far as he was concerned, he was done fighting like that. Sensui had another assessment. The trials of the Chapter Black arc would put Yusuke on the defensive. Unusual fighters starting unusual fights. Yusuke was forced on a long string of battles he least liked to fight. As capable as he was in dealing with it, being unable to let loose put stress on him, something alleviated by Hiei, but the full battle against Sensui would give him all too much indulgence as he was once again put against something above him. By experiencing the losses of Genkai and Kuwabara, however temporary, and by reaching his supposed limits, Yusuke became so much more like Toguro. He would limit his power, and as much as he tried to repress it, he would hunger for more. Sensui insisted that this ugly part of himself, his desire to shed blood in the heat of combat, would be something he would continue to chase, throwing out all his convictions if need be. And he wasn't wrong. Yusuke stopped caring about the fate of the human world if the barrier fell.
Also, I just want to say this, like, watching these clips, it really makes me miss how anime used to look like back in, you know, the 80s and the 90s. Just like they had their own signature look. Now I know a lot of it has to do with how anime was made and how it was a time before we had the technology that we have now with, you know, multiple animation programs that make it so much easier to you know, to animate things, which is fantastic for the animators, because if you know anything about animation, you know just how much work and time goes into it. So the fact that there are programs now that make it a lot easier for them is absolutely a good thing, don't get me wrong. But I feel like that also kind of contributed to anime kind of looking a bit more, what's the word? Kind of looking a bit more flat, which I know is kind of a weird thing to say, but it doesn't look anywhere near, in my opinion, as good as anime did in the 80s and the 90s. Now, again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that anime now doesn't look good. It does, because like I said, the technology that's available now allows animators to do things that they probably weren't capable of doing, or they weren't able to do before, because it would have been absolutely impossible or just really, really difficult, and would have required a lot more time put into it than what would be required to make a series, especially a shonen fighting series like Yu Yu Hakusho. But yeah, like I miss that when anime had this look, and now it just feels so, what's the word? It kind of feels weird. Actually, you know what? There is a video that I found on YouTube that I think perfectly explains it better than I do, and we'll watch it so you guys can know what I mean. Like that guy explains it way better than I do, than I could. But yeah, I just want to say that I kind of really miss how anime used to look, and I wonder if maybe there's others who feel the same. Let me know in the comments if you prefer how anime looked before compared to how it looks now. Not that it looks bad now, it's just that I guess it's more of a preference. It's more of a subjective thing. I kind of like the look of 80s and 90s anime compared to how anime kind of looks now. Again, not that it's bad, just more of a preference.
Focusing entirely on his fight with Sensui, yet that wasn't enough to win, so he let his monstrous self die. Instilling his comrades with the same emotion he felt in the Dark Tournament, he'd taken the route that seemed most ideal if it meant stopping Sensui, but unknowing of his true nature, it didn't stick. Yusuke returned, now capable of finishing the fight, something he very much wanted to do on his own, lamenting the control his ancestor placed on him, that allowed him to defeat Sensui once and for all. In the end, Yusuke couldn't escape the demon inside of him. Sensui had called that human desire of his to fight ugly, yet through the battle he came to enjoy it himself. Passing from the world, he would leave it unchanged. As Yusuke, faced with his desires with a chance to stay in the demon world, passed on that chance, not so easily being able to change who he is, whether that desire to fight was something demon or something human. And although he returned to the human world, that desire to battle was still something that very much remained. When opportunity returned, Yusuke's fallen morals became second nature, discussing humans as food, as offerings, without even blinking. If through that, then Raizen could better offer the strength to fight, or even just live, that was fine by Yusuke. But Raizen's will was beyond him. In his love for humans, he resisted those urges to the end. No one would have denied him, but his integrity allowed him, a demon, to surpass his nature, to act out his will without anyone coming to harm. And with the demon world on the cusp of a three-way war that would leave who knew how many dead, Yusuke proposed a compromise. Had the war started, Yusuke would have been able to have the fighting of his life. But like his father, he held back his nature, and the demon world went along with his whims. They all had their desires, but they didn't have to act on them in harmful ways. And the tournament would offer a straightforward path to fight and achieve them. To impose one's will on the world through luck and skill, without harm, was as good a reason to fight as any. In Yusuke's ancestry was a demon who loved a human so dearly, he had resisted the harm his own nature could have wrought. By managing.
So sorry, last thing that I want to ask you guys before we get to the end of the video is, what are your thoughts on this arc? You know, the Underworld tournament arc. Like in my opinion, it's obviously nowhere near as good as the Dark Tournament and the Chapter Black arc. But for me, I didn't hate it. It's just, it was kind of an obvious step down from what we had before. But I don't hate it. I think it's fine. It's okay. But when you consider that this is the last story before the overall story ends, it does leave you feeling, or at least it left me feeling. I won't speak for anyone else. It left me feeling kind of underwhelmed. You know what I mean? It's like you went from Chapter Black to this, which again wasn't bad, but it felt like an obvious step down, and that's how you choose to end the story. It just felt a little underwhelming. But that's just my thoughts. I want to know your thoughts on whether this arc was good, or whether you felt a little underwhelmed as I did, and especially considering that this is supposed to be the last arc before the story ends. So
his nature all the same, he would come to change the world, pushing it closer to one where demons and humans could exist together, where one who is a part of both worlds could be together with both sides of himself, having made his place in that world. And that's it for this one, but it makes a good segue into Nunmanji's video. Thanks to him for editing this one, and the funding to do so came from my patrons, such as Gloogle, Moz, Mr. Cynical, Sir Praligod, Flarbu, Oliver Mort, Mohammed Hakim, and Tengoon. Thanks again.
So there you go. Those are all the patrons. Now, guys, as always, if you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, comment with your thoughts, and check the description for links to this video as well as Craftsdwarf's channel. Like I said, guys, make sure you head on over there, subscribe to him, and watch his videos because he makes fantastic videos. Anyway, with all that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you watched up until this point, I really appreciate your support, and I hope to see you guys for my next reaction. Bye for now.